Tubes. Everything in audio started with tubes. And there's a romance with tube gear because great quality tube gear creates a tone that just sounds right. So for the past year, the Slate Digital team and I have been collecting some of the very best tube preamps, amplifiers, and even tube mixers. And we've created a new bundle of unique plugins called the Virtual Tube Collection. Each module in the Virtual Tube Collection can perform 3 distinct roles. On preamp mode, it can add a rich analog color to your audio tracks, and it can also add some serious flavor to many of the typically flat interface preamps that are often used. Also on preamp mode, you can crank the saturation knob and you're gonna hear a beautiful, smooth tube distortion, which can add some fantastic character and bite when blended in via the mix knob. Finally, on console mode, each module becomes a virtual tube summing bus, including unique mix bus crosstalk characteristics, and now on console mode, the saturation parameter emulates mix bus saturation. So cranking it will recreate the tone of hitting a tube mixer really hard, and it's gonna add some gorgeous depth, vibe, glue, and warmth to your entire mix or master. I'm gonna introduce you to the Virtual Tube Collection modules on 3 different types of material. We have an aggressive metal mix, a really great house mix, and then we'll use them to master an R&B mix. So I hope you've packed a lunch because we have a lot to talk about. Let's go. Okay, so let's meet the boys. On our far left, we have the London. This one's inspired by some old European tube gear. It is big, it is warm, it is bold, it's got a very smooth top end. It has a classy vintage tone, very fun to distort because it just doesn't get harsh. In the middle, we have the Hollywood. This one is inspired by some old West Coast tube gear, and it has some serious air on the top end. That's what I love about this one. I don't know why we call it the Hollywood, because there's certainly no airheads in this town. But anyway, it has some big fat lows as well. It's really warm. Best way to describe this overall tone is this one sounds expensive to my ears. And last, we have the New York. And much like the patrons of that fine city, it is the most aggressive of the 3. It's got an amazing clarity to the mid-range, and it also has a very tight bottom end. Your low end will be more defined and less muddy with the New York. You'll notice that there is a switch here called normal push. Now, when you go into push mode, the overall nonlinear content of the model tube circuit is pushed a bit up, so you'll get some more texture, a little more character when this switch is engaged. Don't expect it to be some kind of gimmick, we keep it real here at Slate. So this is somewhat subtle, but I really love it, and I use push quite a bit. And if you're using these preamps during tracking with some vocals, we put a really smooth 6 dB per octave high pass on there to remove some rumble. All right, enough talk, let's get listening. So first, we are gonna wake up a bit with some metal. Here's a mix with no tube preamps or consoles enabled. Let's take a listen. I will do not dare, but not for you. I will live in fear for the people I hold dear. I hope they never see my hate you. So this mix has the typical digital foggy thing happening. I believe the term is digifogitis. Okay, fine, I just made that up. But basically, because all the elements of the mix are so clean in the digital mixer, when they pile up on top of each other in the mix bus, they just don't pop. They don't stand out. They don't have that vibe, and it kind of gives you that mucky digital feel. So I'm going to favor the New York module on this mix because for metal, I want aggressive, I want clear, and I want a tight bottom end. The first thing I did was put New York on preamp mode on basically every channel, just on its default setting. That's it. I'm using it very much like the Virtual Console Collection channel plugins. And that alone is going to do some wonders. So you can see here it's on the kick, and here it is on the overheads. But then for snare, I want to point out, I did something a little different. I wanted that one a little bit more airy and thick. So for that one, I actually went with the Hollywood on push mode, and then I gave it just a touch of saturation, which is going to give it a bit more oomph. Let's actually just take a listen just to the snare real quick. Okay, now we're going to mix bus. For mix bus, I've got the New York on console mode. Remember, this is going to be a totally different animal than preamp mode, including how it saturates, because it's emulating mixed bus tube amps, which will be more forgiving, and it'll distort in a different way if you really push it. As you can see, I've got it on push mode, and I didn't need to saturate it because the mix is already really hot into the mix bus, so the needle is already pinning, so it's giving me attitude even with the saturation fully counterclockwise. I love pinning VU needles, and I also just realized that that previous statement would sound really weird out of context. Okay, moving on to bass guitar. First, let's take a quick listen. All right, sounds cool, but I want to add some extra thickness and a little more vibe. So now we're going to use the New York as a tube distortion box. So first, check out how great it sounds when I distort it on preamp mode. Now that is beautiful. I love that. So now we're going to dial it back with the mix knob so that it adds that thickening effect without sounding over the top distorted. And there you go. So now we have some attitude on our bass guitar. Finally, the vocal. Let's hear it first. I will stand out there, but not for you. I will live in fear for the people I own. Okay, so it's an aggressive vocal, but it's just lacking a bit of body and warmth. So in this case, I went with the London, and I put it at the end of the chain this time. I wanted to saturate it at the end of the chain. And I distorted it on preamp mode, and then I backed it off with the mix knob. Let's play with that for a second. I will stand out there, but not for you. I will live in fear for the people I own dear. I know they never see my hate. You make me sick. And that does it for this mix. Wait till you hear this AB. I mean, when you hit bypass, it's like turning a record into a demo. It's a huge difference. Okay, so we got the adrenaline pumping with the metal. Now let's get into a groove with this house mix. So it sounds pretty good already, but with a few virtual tube modules, we can make it fatter, tighter, warmer, and smoother on the top. Speaking of top, let's go top down and start with the master fader. The first thing I did was put VCC mix bus on the FGN because I just love that sound on electronic music stuff. It's like instant bigness and warmth. So I'm not hitting it very hard because that's where the London is about to come in. So first, let's hear that. And now we have London. And you might be thinking, oh my God, you have VCC analog summing and London summing together on the mix bus? That's not allowed. No way. I'm calling the audio police. But in reality, there are no rules. So with London, I put it on push mode. I gave it a bit of saturation to give the entire mix more character and vibe, and then I also used this high pass to about 40 hertz to take away a bit of the excess boominess, and these two together just really gave this mix some extra color that I just really love. So let's go to the drum bus. Okay, it's a bit mushy, so I want to add some focus, some depth, and a bit more air. So let's put Hollywood on there, then saturate just a wee bit, and let's take a listen. And now that mush is all gone. Now last, we're gonna go to this lead part. So I hear this lead part and I'm like, snooze. So my first instinct was, let's make it dirty. With some help from Trimmer, I pushed some gain into the London preamp and I saturated it all the way. Let's listen. I love that. But we're gonna back it to about 20%, and now it has the vibe without being overly distorted. So then I used lift to brighten the whole thing up, not shy there, and then some blue modern compression to even things out. And now let's do a final A-B. So just with those few instances of virtual tube collection, we really made this mix come alive. Last but not least, we have a great R&B mix. Let's take a listen.
Ever since your eyes met mine, oh baby, I knew I had this feeling stirring deep inside. There's something special about you.
Once again, sounds great already, but let's run it through a tube console in the mastering stage to add some more vibe. First, let's tighten up that low end just a bit with a technique that you are going to love. It's called Resonant high pass filter. So we have the Earth module in VMR, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to put it on 12 dB per octave high pass. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play this song, and I'm going to sweep this high pass filter up until the point where that bass actually starts to get a bit light. We're actually going to slightly intentionally defeat the sub-low. So let's do that first, and bear with me.
Ever since your eyes met mine, oh baby, I knew I had this feeling stirring deep inside. There's something special about you.
Okay, so we found it at about 60 cycles. Now here comes the magic. Here is our little resonance knob. And as I go to the right, it's going to create this little resonant bump, and that's going to make our bass sound very tight, defined, and punchy. I'll exaggerate it at first, and I'll back it down to where I feel like it sits right.
Ever since your eyes met mine, oh baby, I knew I had this feeling stirring deep inside. There's something special about you. It's like the air comes alive when you walk into the room.
And there you go. So now our bass is big and it's tight. So next, just a little bit of 7K from our custom series EQ to add a bit more presence.
Ever since your eyes met mine, oh baby, I knew I had this feeling stirring deep inside. There's something special about you. It's like the air comes alive.
And finally, I'm going to put it through the Hollywood console on push mode with saturation just on number 1, just for that last bit of tubey vibe and air.
Ever since your eyes met mine, oh baby, I knew I had this feeling stirring deep inside. There's something special about you. It's like the air comes alive when you walk into the room. And girl, it took no time, you had me so.
And there you go, off to FGX, and we've got one hell of a great master. So if you are an Everything Bundle member, you can download the Virtual Tube Collection right now. And if you want to buy it, it's $179. And that is it for me. I hope you guys love Virtual Tube Collection as much as I do. So with that, happy mixing.